Kamish, the dragon they called the worst disaster in human history, just bowed its head to the floor and called me master. Hours later, an S-rank hunter used my name as bait to lure Jinho away, and my shadows found him beaten bloody on a factory floor. I had Dongsoo Hwang by the collar when Thomas Andre, Goliath, America's national-level hunter, crashed through the factory roof and told me he's not asking. AI Anime and Manga presents Solo Leveling. If the Shadow Monarch's fury has you hooked, a like really helps. And tell me in the comments, who blinks first? Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when these two collide. And channel members get every episode early. Only one being had the ability to bring a soul back from the dark abyss, and that was the Shadow Monarch. The dragon recognized who Jinwoo was at once. The king of the dead, who had taken the form of a human, stood gazing upon Kamish. The power he wielded gave the dragon a great chill. However, before long, Kamish's eyes shifted to the ones behind the Shadow Monarch and spotted the faces of dumbfounded humans staring at it with their mouths agape. Humans? Humans? The hatred for humans the dragon had held to its dying breath came rushing back. As it did, the dragon also remembered the pain it had felt at the humans' hands. Kill humans. Snap! Kamish roared.
All of you! I will kill all of you!
The air in the chamber began heating up. The director whispered in horror.
Oh my god.
The structure had been built around a sleeping dragon, but it now looked too small to contain the beast, as its head reached the ceiling and split the concrete. A staff member stammered, "What?" Another whispered, "Could that be?" A red glow formed within the dragon's mouth. Both the director and assistant director had seen what that mass of red light could do via video footage on repeat. Adam anxiously yelled at the director and grabbed him by the shoulder.
Mr. Brannon, we need to get out of here.
Brannon shouted.
How do you escape a dragon's breath?
Once the red light was expelled, destruction of this lair and the entire headquarters of the Hunter Command Center would be assured. There was no escaping the dragon's attack. Hood! One of the staff members' knees buckled, his face pale. Two others desperately tried to enter the password to open the door. But both the director and assistant director knew it was all for naught, so they kept staring back and forth between Jinwoo and the revived dragon. The red light transformed into a ball of fire. The dragon was ready to spit flames at the humans in front of it. Kamish roared.
Siralgis.
Just then, I bellowed, "Stop." The members of the association, who had instinctively shielded their eyes from the bright light, now cautiously lowered their hands. They had thought themselves doomed, but that had been a hasty conclusion. One of the staff whispered, "How?" The fire that had been raging inside Kamish's mouth died down. In the past, the dragon had incinerated hundreds of hunters with its fiery breath, but it now took one hunter to stop it in its tracks. The director gawked at Jinwoo, and just when he thought he couldn't be more surprised, I spoke to Kamish. The essence stone that was once inside your head was taken a long time ago. You don't have to listen to the rulers anymore. The assistant director shivered and asked,
Is he speaking the language of magic beasts?
Connor murmured.
I don't know what to make of what I'm seeing right now.
While everyone else was trying to work through their shock, I let out a sigh of relief. I hadn't had much time to think, so it was a good thing my idea had worked. For a moment there, though, the dragon's aggression coming back had caught me off guard. How can a shadow soldier be so bold? It looked like the King of Giants had been right about powerful beings having bigger egos. The dragon itself was surprised at how compliant it was toward the new monarch. Kamish murmured.
So this is how it feels to be subordinate to the Shadow Monarch.
Kamish lowered itself out of respect to Jinwoo. The humans flinched as the dragon moved but calmed down as nothing else happened. The dragon's nose touched the floor, and Kamish spoke in a low voice.
This former servant of the Dragon King bows down to its new master.
Despite its guttural voice, a distinctive feature of magic beasts, Kamish spoke with the utmost respect. I slowly approached the dragon and laid a hand on Kamish's snout. The dragon closed its eyes, soothed by my touch as an inexplicable feeling of relaxation spread throughout its body. I could also feel the dragon's mood lifting, and my heart raced at the implication. Badum. Kamish the dragon is really my soldier now. A smile blossomed on my face. Adam was rendered speechless by what he was witnessing, until something caught his eye. He asked Connor.
Mr. Connor, is Kamish wagging its tail now?
Kamish was called the worst disaster of human history, not man's best friend. So what kind of nonsense was Adam talking about? But that was the only way to describe what was happening with Kamish's tail. Connor breathed. Oh my. When I removed my hand from the dragon's nose, Kamish stopped wagging its tail and looked up. Humans had named the dragon Kamish for their own convenience, but I was considering a new name for my new shadow soldier. I then remembered what the dragon had said when I first greeted it. I asked, "You said you served the Dragon King before?" Kamish answered,
That is right, my king. I served the king of wild dragons, the monarch of destruction.
the king of the dead, the Shadow Monarch, and the king of giants, the monarch of the beginning. It hit me that the dragon's former master was one of the 9 monarchs I had heard about from the system. But that wasn't important right now. I wanted to give the dragon its original name back. I began, "So what's your none?" But I was unable to finish my sentence, my eyes widening at the sight of the dragon. The dragon's body was slowly crumbling like a sandcastle being blown apart by the wind. Kamish said,
Alas, my king, I believe it is time for me to bid you farewell.
I said what? My perception stat picked up on the dragon's emotions. The dragon was truly upset and saddened by the situation. Kamish said,
It appears we've met a little too late.
Even the power of the Shadow Monarch couldn't overcome the 8 years. The dragon's magic power was weak from being stuck at the bottom of the abyss for too long, and it began to disintegrate into the air. Devastated, I called out to the system for help. System. But there was no response. The dragon could sense my emotions as well.
I envy the soldiers who can serve your majesty forever.
The dragon's words were sincere. It also had a last bit of advice for a king lamenting the loss of his soldier. The dragon warned me,
My king, there exist 4 humans who have borrowed the powers of the rulers. Beware.
Its voice grew distant as its body faded away.
Although it was fleeting, it was an honor to serve.
The dragon's shadow vanished as if it had never existed, and silence filled the room. The light fixtures stopped flickering. The director rushed to examine the dragon's remains, but they looked untouched. He was dazed, as if he had awoken from a dream. However, the despair on my face confirmed that it had really happened. For a moment, no one spoke. For the longest time, I couldn't take my eyes from the spot where the dragon's shadow had stood, until I finally received a notification from the system. A system message appeared. Shadow extraction has failed. Too much time has elapsed since the subject's time of death, rendering the extraction futile. The subject's shadow has returned to the void. I had never hated the sound of the chime as much as I did in this instant. I clenched my fist tightly. Wham! Furious, I punched the floor, and for a second, the whole building shook. Adam escorted me back to the hotel. The car ride over was silent due to my foul mood. After checking in for me, Adam finally approached. Adam said,
I'm in charge of looking after you during your stay in the US, so please feel free to call me anytime if you need anything.
I answered coldly, Sure. Adam went from smiling to shivering. Scary. This was his first time dealing with a high-rank hunter in a foul mood, and it was terrifying. Naturally, with me in this frame of mind, and both the director and assistant director in a state of shock, the negotiations had been postponed. I decided I needed to get some sleep and was about to go up to my room. Jinchul entered the hotel lobby and spotted me.
Hunter-san, it's been impossible to reach you.
I answered, Oh, I was somewhere that didn't have cell service. Outsiders were prohibited from using their phones inside the Hunter Command Center headquarters. There were no exceptions, even for important guests, as it was a security measure to guard their secrets. If someone important like Mrs. Selner was ever photographed, the entire Hunter Command Center would go ballistic. Jinchul scratched his forehead with his index finger.
Did you see Hunter Yu there?
I asked, Pardon? Jinchul looked confused.
Hunter Yu said he received a message from you. He was to meet you at the Hunter Command Center HQ.
I said, I just got back from there. What are you talking about? Adam cut into their conversation and said,
Hunter Yu wasn't on the visitor log.
Huh? But an S-rank hunter picked him up 2 hours ago.
I urgently asked, What S-rank hunter?
Hunter Dongsoo Hwang. He came by to pick up Hunter Yu.
The name didn't seem to ring any alarms for the other two, but a bad feeling washed over me. Is this because of the perception stat? Seeing me tense up, Adam took out his phone.
I'll contact Hunter Hwang's guild.
After a few rings, Laura of the Scavenger Guild answered the phone. Adam briefly introduced himself and explained what had happened. Adam thought the news would surprise her, but she remained calm. Laura asked,
Does Hunter Jinwoo Sung know about this?
Adam had only explained that Dongsoo had taken Jinho, but she was the one who brought up my name. His brow wrinkled in confusion, and he glanced at me, so I shook my head. Adam nodded and quickly made up a story. He said,
Hunter Sung doesn't know anything yet. Someone in Hunter Yu's party reached out to us while he was at the Hunter Command Center.
Laura answered.
We'll try to get to the bottom of this as soon as we can.
I had been wordlessly listening into the call, and I headed to the exit as soon as it ended. Adam rushed after me and called out,
Hunter Sung, the Scavenger Guild is looking into it, so I'll contact you when...
But I had already vanished. Adam stared down the street, troubled.
What? Where did he go?
I ducked into a quiet alley in order to avoid the crowds and deactivated stealth. An S-rank hunter had used my name as bait to lure Jinho away. But the guild of said hunters seemed rather dismissive about the whole thing. Something's fishy. There had to be a reason the person on the other end of the call had immediately mentioned me.
I was pissed!
Whoever was behind this, they had picked the wrong day to stir up trouble. I barked out an order. I ordered, find him. If all my soldiers split up to track Jinho's mana, it shouldn't take too long to locate him. Whoosh, whoosh. 1,000 shadows shot out from beneath my feet, heading in different directions at an impressive speed. Thomas looked around the condo, stone-faced. He had ordered some hunters to monitor Dongsoo, but here they were knocked out inside Dongsoo's condo without him. Thomas clicked his tongue and took off his trademark sunglasses.
Tisk.
His subordinates stood silently, pale at Thomas's apparent fury. Thomas gnashed his teeth and gave an order.
Damn him! Find Dongsoo Hwang before Jinwoo does. Do whatever it takes.
I stood on the roof of a building where I could get a look at the entire city. With my eyesight enhanced by my high perception stat, I scanned the streets surrounding the building all the way to the residential area in the far distance. I also paid attention to the sounds my shadow soldiers were picking up. A passerby called, "Smith, how are you these days?" A shop clerk said, "Miss, our store doesn't allow any returns just because you changed your mind." Another voice asked, "Why weren't you at the party last night?" Countless banal conversations, car horns, TV broadcasts, cats meowing, water splashing in bathrooms. The sounds of the city assaulted me. Sweat dripped from my forehead as I strained to use all my senses as well as perception. If only I'd kept a shadow soldier with Jinho. Hindsight was 20/20. I had used the soldier placed in Jinho's shadow to teleport to Chairman Yu's hospital room. And because I had been so busy and had planned to stick by Jinho's side while we were in the US, I had forgotten to replace it. Now we were in this mess. First I lost Kamish's shadow, and now Jinho. I gritted my teeth. My foul mood was only getting worse. My eyes seemed to shoot out lightning bolts as they scanned the city, but I could barely find any similar-looking young Asian males, much less Jinho. Could they have left the city? Jinho may have been my cute little brother, but he was still a D-rank brawler. The average person didn't stand a chance against him. Jinho would have sensed that something was wrong. He would have tried to escape once he realized the car was leaving the city instead of going to the Hunter Command Center. The only thing that would have stopped him was... the bastard who took him was an S-rank hunter. I expanded the search perimeter of my shadow soldiers. Dongsoo Hwang, huh? I didn't know why Dongsoo had taken Jinho, but he'd poked the lion in doing so, and I was more than ready to return the favor. And if something happened to Jinho? My eyes flashed at the mere thought. An endless stream of information poured in as my shadow soldiers continued their search. It was only a matter of time. Dongsoo had finally done it this time. The Scavenger Guild was on high alert. The opponent was Jinwoo Sung. One wrong move, and Dongsoo was dead. Dongsoo was one of the main pillars of the Scavenger Guild's fighting forces, so Thomas couldn't afford to lose him. He anxiously waited in his office for updates.
Any news?
His subordinate said, his expression grim. Not yet, sir. The wrinkles on Thomas's forehead got even deeper. Dongsoo's cell phone was off, so they couldn't track his location that way. Thomas had ordered his men to search the hunter's usual haunts, but unfortunately, that led nowhere. It appeared Dongsoo had made thorough preparations. Doesn't he value his life? No. As an S-rank hunter, Dongsoo was well aware of the power gap between Jinwoo and himself. He had pulled this reckless stunt because he assumed he would have help. Dongsoo's only doing this because he knows I have his back. Dongsoo was right. Whatever he did, he was still considered an asset to the Scavenger Guild until his contract was up. The guild had invested tons of money in him because they saw his abilities and potential, so he was doing this without thinking of the consequences because he knew Thomas would never give up his assets. Have I been too soft on these hunters? Thomas would have to firmly discipline Dongsoo to avoid this kind of trouble in the future. His subordinate could barely bring himself to breathe in the tense atmosphere. Just then the phone rang, and Thomas quickly picked up. Laura said,
I think I've found where Mr. Hwang might be.
It was Laura. Thomas shot up from his seat.
How?
Laura rushed to explain. Laura said,
I asked the Hunter Command Center for their cooperation, and they checked Mr. Hwang's pattern of movement in recent months. He broke from his normal routine to go to an unknown location 3 separate times.
Excellent. Thomas nodded in approval. Laura had located Dongsoo quicker than expected. Thomas ordered,
Send every single man there. I'll head over too.
Laura replied.
Understood.
He paused before hanging up.
By the way, how did you get those fogies at the Hunter Command Center to cooperate, Laura?
Like the Hunters Association of Korea, the Hunter Command Center also recorded their hunters' movements using the GPS on their hunter-issued phones. However, the organization wasn't known for sharing information freely. Despite being a request from the Scavenger Guild, it should have taken at least several hours to go through approvals. The speed at which they'd given up Dongsoo's information was unparalleled, so Thomas was curious how Laura had pulled it off. Her answer was much simpler than he thought. Laura answered,
I told them that if we didn't find Hunter Hwang soon, you and Hunter Sung might come to blows.
Adam, who had been monitoring the Scavenger Guild, hurriedly reported to the assistant director.
The guild members have started moving.
Connor asked.
All 100 of them?
Adam said.
They canceled a planned raid just now. All hunters are mobilizing.
Connor asked.
What the heck? What is going on?
Adam fell silent. He didn't know how to explain it. An S-rank hunter belonging to the Scavenger Guild had lied and taken one of Jinwoo's people. Both Jinwoo and the Scavenger Guild were now on the move. This wasn't normal. Guildmaster Thomas Andre had to have authorized this for the entirety of the guild to mobilize like this. Adam had a bad feeling in his gut, and he broke out into a sweat. He froze when he saw Thomas emerge from his headquarters. Oh. Thomas scanned the area before getting in the car waiting for him. The car then sped off in the same direction the other hunters from the Scavenger Guild had gone. Adam tried to steady his shaky voice.
Mr. Connor, Goliath, Thomas Andre is on the move.
A concerned man asked while staring down at Jinho lying unconscious on the floor.
You sure this is okay?
Dongsoo nodded.
I'm not out to end him. I only need to know one thing.
Thomas had warned him that Jinwoo Sung was not to be harmed. But Dongsoo had no intention of doing that anyway. There was one other person from whom he could extract his answer. What had happened the day his older brother, Dongsuk, Jinwoo, and Jinho had entered that dungeon? Dongsoo had promised Jinho that he'd let him go if he told the truth. But even after quite a bit of roughing up, Jinho had refused to say anything. The tighter Jinho kept his mouth shut, the deeper Dongsoo's suspicions grew. He just wanted to hear one thing. Jinwoo killed your older brother. With that one sentence, his business with Jinho would be done. But how dare the tiny, naive-looking kid defy an S-rank hunter? Dongsoo admired Jinho's courage. But that doesn't let him off the hook. Dongsoo kicked the bruised man in the ribs.
Hey, wake up.
This was the 3rd or 4th time that Jinho had drifted in and out of consciousness. Annoyed, Dongsoo kicked the stubborn young man even harder.
I said wake up!
Bam! Gah! Jinho coughed out the blood that had pooled in his mouth. His body curled into itself. The other guy chuckled at the sight.
This one's a tank, all right. Any other guy would be dead by now.
Dongsoo's face was devoid of emotion as he yanked Jinho's head up by his hair.
Listen, I have no intention of killing you. The guy laughing right now, he's quite a talented healer. He'll bring you back from the brink of death every time.
Jinho blearily looked up at the cackling man, who smiled and wagged his finger at him. Dongsoo shook Jinho's head around. Jinho's head flopped to one side. The dusty interior of the building came into view. Dongsoo continued.
This factory has been closed for more than 5 years. Scream all you want. No one will hear you.
Dongsoo held Jinho's head tightly as he leaned in closer to his face. The two men were soon eye to eye.
That means you'll suffer until you tell me what I want to hear.
When they were close enough to touch noses, Dongsoo bared his teeth.
So, do you want to talk now?
Jinho gave no answer. Jinho's lips moved, but Dongsoo couldn't hear what he was saying.
What?
He still made no sound. Dongsoo raised an eyebrow and leaned in closer. Jinho whispered in Dongsoo's ear.
Fuck you!
Dongsoo's face twisted.
Whack!
He slammed Jinho's head into the ground. Caught off guard, the healer rushed forward and checked Jinho's pulse.
Whoa, did you kill him?
The healer breathed a sigh of relief after confirming Jinho was still alive. Whew! Had Dongsoo applied a little more pressure, however, that wouldn't have been the case. The healer said,
Mr. Hwang, please be a little more careful. I don't want to be an accessory to murder.
Noted.
Dongsoo relented. Uneasy about this whole affair, another man tried to dissuade Dongsoo.
Let's just go. Haven't you pushed him enough?
What are you talking about? I'm just getting started.
A sinister smile crept across Dongsoo's face. He was just as cruel as his older brother had been. The man nervously glanced around the room. It was then that he noticed something on the other side of the factory. What was that? He squinted at the mass. The man panicked.
What? Huh?
Both Dongsoo and the healer looked toward the man's panicked noises to find a high orc in black armor standing there.
An orc?
Dongsoo stood up. The healer, who had been checking on Jinho, rose as well and asked,
Was there a dungeon break nearby?
Dongsoo shook his head. If so, the whole area would have been in chaos. Just in case, Dongsoo extended his perception to scan for any magic beasts nearby, but the high orc seemed to be alone.
How strange.
Even stranger was that the high orc was shaking in fear, its expression terror-stricken, and it was all it could do to keep from crying. The healer said,
It looks like that beast is afraid of you, Mr. Hwang.
I don't have time for this.
A white light surrounded Dongsoo's fist. As he took long strides toward the orc with his fist raised and ready to rock, my deep voice resounded from out of nowhere. I said, exchange. News regarding more and more dungeon incidents was being reported on the TV. There hadn't been any major incidents, but the number of hunters getting killed during raids was increasing. Kyung-hye, my mother, anxiously watched the news report and asked,
Is my baby going to be okay?
No matter how great a hunter they were, mothers would always worry over their children. Beru, who was hiding in the shadows and guarding her under Jinwoo's orders, heard her concerns.
Oh, mother of my king. If anyone can survive a dungeon incident, it is your son.
Frustrated, Beru was barely able to keep himself from saying this out loud. He didn't want to frighten Jinwoo's mother, but he was affronted that Kyung-hye was basically comparing his king to the lowly beasts on the screen. It took all his patience and restraint not to try and educate her. The TV anchor said, Next up, the Hunter Command Center in the US is hosting. The anchors changed subjects to the International Guild Conference and showed footage of Jinwoo at the airport. Forgetting her concerns for him, Kyung-hye beamed proudly at the sight of her son swarmed by the paparazzi. Kyung-hye called.
Gina, your brother is on TV.
Gina abandoned her studies and skipped out of her room.
Really?
Although this wasn't the first time, she still found it fascinating and cool to see Jinwoo on television. However, the two women were oblivious to another being cheering even more passionately for Jinwoo than they were.
Oh, my king.
Beru gazed upon the screen with sparkling eyes. A sudden chill ran up Beru's spine, and his body began trembling. He had felt like this once before. When was that? Beru searched his memories until he recalled that moment when Jinwoo had gazed down at Beru with murderous intent in his eyes. The feeling of his inevitable end approaching and the smell of death in the air. This was the first time he'd felt his king's rage since becoming a shadow soldier, and his whole body was paralyzed. But Beru was the king's soldier now. He snapped back to reality.
My king is furious.
As terrified as he felt, Beru couldn't just ignore his king's rage. He attempted to communicate with the hunter.
My king, please remain calm. I shall be right there.
My answer came instantly. I told Beru, no, stay there. The fury in Jinwoo's voice made Beru shiver.
As you wish, sire.
He had no choice but to follow Jinwoo's order. Beru wondered who could be foolish enough to infuriate his king like this.
Who would do such a stupid thing?
Beru retreated deeper inside the shadow to try and forget his terror. In the city of Busan, the Knights Guild was in the middle of preparations for a raid. Guildmaster Jongsu Park lit a fire under them as he did a final check on his members. Jongsu Park told the guild,
"There have been a lot of reports of incidents within dungeons, so stay focused, everyone. Let's go home without a single person harmed."
The guild members, who had been humbled after having done a raid with Jinwoo's minions, gave a loud cheer.
"Yes, sir!"
Yoon-tae Jung, the vice president of the guild, was standing behind Jong-soo and nodding in support when something distracted him. Jong-soo instantly turned to him and asked,
"What? What's wrong?"
Yoon-tae looked back and forth between Jong-soo and Jong-soo's shadow and pointed at the floor.
Boss! The shadow beneath your feet had just moved.
Yoon-tae's mouth snapped shut when Jong-soo glared at him. Jong-soo snapped.
"How many times have I told you not to drink before a raid?"
Yoon-tae protested.
That's not it, boss. I haven't had a single drop today. I swear your shadow really moved like it was alive.
Jong-soo let out a huge sigh and looked at Yoon-tae, disappointed.
"Okay, you need to sit out today."
Yoon-tae shouted.
Boss, I'm telling you the truth.
Jong-soo called to the guild.
"Let's move, everyone! We can do this, knights!"
Yoon-tae's frustrated voice echoed through the air.
But boss...
Incredulous reports about moving shadows came from every location Jinwoo had placed his soldiers, but the shadow soldiers didn't care about eyewitnesses. They were agitated by their king's rage.
"I said, exchange."
I appeared in the High Orc's place. The men jerked in shock. Dongsoo and his men froze like mice encountering a snake at the sudden arrival of the unexpected guest. Recognizing me, Dongsoo's heart sank. But I strode past him and made a beeline straight for Jinho. The two men standing on either side of Jinho scrambled aside. I took a healing potion from my inventory and slowly poured it in Jinho's mouth. A system message appeared. Healing potions cannot recover HP when it dips below 10% of your total HP. Crack! The empty healing potion bottle shattered in my hand. What else could I use? The elixir of life treated illness, so it wouldn't help Jinho's injuries any more than healing magic could cure diseases. I need healing magic. Beru was the only soldier who could perform healing magic, but he was in Korea. Even if I summoned Beru, I wasn't sure how long it would take. Dongsoo finally regained his composure.
You! What the hell are you? The orc just now! How did you do that?
I ignored him and turned to the men nearby. Are either of you a healer? One of the men nodded reflexively at the word healer. I pointed at Jinho. Heal him! The healer looked at Dongsoo, who shook his head. I carefully lowered Jinho back onto the ground and then stood up. This is the last time I'm going to tell you. Heal him. The healer looked at Dongsoo again. Dongsoo's answer was the same, and the healer turned to me with a smile. The healer started.
You'll have to persuade my boss for...
Wham! I slammed the healer's head on the floor, just as Dongsoo had done to Jinho. It happened so quickly, no one actually saw me move, not even Dongsoo the S-rank hunter. I turned to the other guy. What about you? The man trembled as I approached him. The man panicked.
Jinwoo Sung? Hunter Jinwoo Sung?
He stepped back and glared at Dongsoo.
Mr. Hwang, you never said this had anything to do with Jinwoo Sung. What's going on? What the hell is going on?
I repeated. I asked if you were a healer. The man stammered.
No, I'm...
Wham! The man's head was knocked into the ground by an invisible hand. 2 high-rank hunters had been rendered unconscious in no time. Having witnessed my power with his own eyes, Dongsoo panicked.
Boss.
Jinho had regained consciousness, perhaps from the ground shaking.
Boss.
I crouched down. Jinho. Jinho opened his swollen eyes and struggled to speak with his bloodied mouth.
Dongsoo Hwang. Dongsoo Hwang. Younger brother. Be careful.
My heart broke as I watched Jinho struggle to breathe. Shh, don't talk.
Boss.
Jinho grabbed my hand, and tears welled up in his eyes. I asked, "Can you hold on a little longer?" Jinho nodded, unable to speak. I put Jinho's hand down and slowly stood. My eyes landed on Dongsoo. Dongsoo stared back. His knees buckled at my murderous gaze, but he wasn't one to run away. Dongsoo pretended to be all right as he yelled,
It was you! You killed my brother, Dongsoo Hwang, didn't you?
Dongsoo's fearful expression drew closer. I saw the face of someone who had been strong against the weak and weak against the strong. My gaze turned cold.
Answer me! Did you kill my brother and his squad members?
I stopped right in front of him. Go ask your brother. Dongsoo swung a fist surrounded by light at my face, but I ducked and punched Dongsoo right in the stomach.
Arr!
One strike and Dongsoo was already coughing up blood. Thomas shouted from the car.
Stop the car!
The driver asked, "Pardon?" Thomas screamed at the driver.
I said, stop the car!
The driver slammed on his brakes. With the lead car screeching to a halt without any warning, the other cars following quickly braked as well, filling the night with the sounds of skidding rubber. Bam! Thomas kicked open the car door and turned to look in a particular direction. He growled.
Damn it!
The elite hunters of the Scavenger Guild, among the best in the world, jumped out of the other vehicles. A guild member asked, "Sir, what's wrong?" Another asked, "What's going on?" Thomas answered the anxious guild members in clipped sentences.
It's already begun. I'll go ahead. Follow me.
A hunter asked, "Excuse me? What had begun?" Thomas bent at the knees before his team could ask. His leg muscles bulged as the asphalt heated up, sending the other hunters retreating 2 or 3 steps. Whew! Thomas leaped into the air and was out of sight in the blink of an eye. Something is headed this way. Something powerful was approaching fast. Just as Thomas sensed my power, I sensed Thomas's. I held Dongsoo by the collar with one hand, and my other hand paused in midair. Dongsoo was now as severely injured as Jinho was. Boom! Part of the factory's roof collapsed as Thomas landed on the ground like a superhero. Without so much as blinking, I turned in his direction. Thomas checked his surroundings as he stood. His gaze moved from Jinho to me to my hand before fixing on Dongsoo. He frowned. He had been unable to sense Dongsoo's presence because it was drowned out by mine. Thomas threw off his sunglasses and asked,
Dongsoo Hwang, is he still alive?
I answered, for now. Thomas used simple English words and enunciated clearly for my sake.
Let him go! If you do, I'll pretend this did not happen. Please.
I gripped Dongsoo's collar even tighter. And if I say no, Thomas said,
I'm not asking.
One of the strongest hunters in the world bared his teeth. The average hunter would have been scared half to death, but I didn't so much as flinch. I said, come at me then.